Everybody, welcome.
We'll give people a few minutes to get on.
Excellent.
I love that we're coming from 3 different states. We got one different time zone over here. How's the weather in your state? Is it getting cooler over there? Haley?
Yeah, yeah. It's been in the 70s, which has been really nice.
I'm
Just
talking to you
for
as if you can see me, like that I'm looking at you. But I have to open up the comments so I can see everybody. All right. I'm mad that we don't have our awards. Yeah.
Yeah. Is there a way for you to share links directly with everyone? Because I know we're on multiple platforms.
Yes, I think if I share it from here, everybody will get it.
Okay, so I'm going to send you the link because I don't have that option.
All right.
If you are joining us tonight, let's just kind of get our chat going. Just let us know where you're joining us from.
Yeah.
Hey, Jess, how are you? Thanks for joining us tonight.
Your chat. There we go. I was having trouble opening my chat. All right. We got about 10 people. We can get started. It's gonna actually save right to YouTube as well, so people can come back and watch it. So
Excellent.
whenever you want to get started.
Okay. Well, welcome everybody. We're so glad that you're joining us on this Thursday evening and our first webinar since the summer has ended. We are here tonight to talk about press releases. If you joined us last year in 2024, we did a press release webinar, and we have updated it. Haley, who is our media specialist, has learned a bit more along the way, and she's really excited to share more about what we learned. And we have some stories about how press releases have kind of helped the families that we worked with that we want to kind of share with you about how press releases can really help your families when you are out there trying to gain some media attention and generate new tips and leads. So let's start by just kind of welcoming you all and introducing you to who we are. So first of all, we'll just go over kind of how the night's going to run. So we'll go through our webinar. If you have some questions, just drop them into the chat. We'll do Q&A at the end. We have some handouts that we will share. Haley's put one in already in the chat. The handout is really helpful and it has some information that she's going to be going over. So we suggest kind of opening that up and having that ready. And then there will also be a recording. We record everything. It's here on the Gabby Petito Foundation YouTube channel forever. We try and post it on our socials as well and have them on our website so that you can access them at any time. And with that, I'll just go over introductions. If you don't know me, my name is Shana Richard, and I am the founder of Light the Way Missing Persons Advocacy Project. I work with families, I work with law enforcement to help and bring as much awareness as possible to families who have missing loved ones or unresolved cases of homicides. And I'm really honored to work with an incredible team. And during this past year, we were really excited about our partnership with the Gabby Petito Foundation, and we've been really lucky to be able to work with Gabby's family and the board on bringing much needed awareness to a lot more cases, and we're working on search efforts for families, more educational resources like these webinars, and just providing some support for families. So that's kind of what we've been working on this year, and we've been working really hard, and I think we've done a pretty okay job. So I'm going to hand that over to Nicole.
Hi, everyone. You kind of know who I am, but I will introduce myself again. I'm Nicole Schmidt. I am the president of Gabby Petito Foundation and co-founder with the other parents. And like Shayna said, when we came together. It just happened to work out perfectly. It was perfect timing. We wanted to do more for missing families directly, and Shayna was already doing that work, but she needed some help, and bringing her on board was just an amazing opportunity for all of us and for the families. I think it's a great team we have working alongside Haley, who's been so amazing, and some other wonderful volunteers. We are really, I think, doing the good work the best we can. It's a lot of hard work, but we try. So thank you so much for being here tonight to try and learn something new. And I'm going to pass it over to Haley.
Hi, everyone. I'm Haley Gray. I am a researcher and writer for multiple podcasts. I'm also the media specialist for Light the Way, which has been just so incredible. I swear, like 99% of what I know comes from Shayna. So it's such an honor to have learned from her and from Nikki. And I'm so glad to be here to share what I've learned in the last year and a half. I thought when Shayna and I talked about doing this webinar, I was like, oh, I'll just like do a couple updates. And then I completely redid the whole thing. I was like, wow, I've really learned so much. So I'm really looking forward to sharing everything.
So thank you guys for joining us again. And like we said, if you have any questions, just drop them into the chat and we'll get to them at the end. So now we're going to talk about what a press release is. So if you don't know, a press release is a short written announcement that is shared with journalists, news outlets, and other media contacts. It provides clear, factual information about a recent development in a case, or a call to action, or an event, such as a vigil, a case update, a reward announcement, or a commemorative date. Press releases typically follow a standard format, and they include the key facts such as who, what, when, where, and why, and how. They might also include quotes from family members, advocates, or law enforcement to help humanize the story and encourage media coverage. So overall, press releases are one of the most effective tools families can use themselves to raise awareness through the media. And they can help ensure that your loved one's story is told accurately and shared widely.
Yeah, and press releases can play a crucial role in drawing attention to missing persons cases and unresolved homicides. When shared with the right outlets at the right time, a press release can encourage journalists to cover your loved one's story, keep your case in the public eye, especially around key dates. Remember that, that's really important. Generate tips from people who may have seen or heard something, renew community interest and support, and create additional pressure for law enforcement to take action. And it really does work. We've seen it work. Even a single news story can lead to new leads, increase engagement, and critical visibility. A well-timed press release can be a turning point in advocacy efforts. Whether you're announcing a search event, public vigil, podcast episode, new reward, or simply reminding people that your loved one is still missing or their case remains unsolved, a press release is a powerful way to amplify your voice.
Yeah, absolutely. We've had a lot of luck over the years with press releases. I'd love to kind of touch on them. I would say my most proud moment ever with a press release would have to be Roger's case. Roger, I am so bad at pronouncing last names, but how do you say it, Shayna?
Becky's here, so Becky, give us a thumbs
Okay.
up. Saying it right.
Isn't it Aguirre?
No, Aguirre.
I got it wrong.
Because you got to roll the R. Aguirre.
Aguirre. Okay. Aguirre.
Sorry, Becky.
Becky, tell us if we're saying it right. I try to practice it when I heard Laura Norton say it, but I don't have that nice tongue roll.
I know. And when I took Spanish in high school, I could never do it. So, but Roger is, I would say, the case that really showed me how effective press releases can be. So Roger's been missing since 1975, and he didn't have any type of press or anything like that until we were able to send out a press release with his family. And for the first time in 50 years, he got an article written about him. And that was just such an amazing thing to be able to help the family with and to help Roger's case with. And since then, we've been able to get additional media coverage, even got the police to make a statement. So, you know, that can be really big. And that's just one example, but for 50 years, nothing. And then sending out one press release and we were able to get coverage. That just really, to me, encapsulates like how great press releases can be.
You know, and that story is a special story because not only had Roger never received any media attention, Roger had never even had a missing person flyer. So Roger really had absolutely nothing. So to have absolutely nothing and then all of a sudden to have a flyer, and that was the one, that's really what the press release was about. That here was Roger. He had never received media coverage. He had never had a flyer, and there, you know, he now had the support of an organization. Here was his first flyer, and that was what the press release was about. So, an example of something that a family might write a press release about, it can be as simple as you have developed a new flyer and you're sharing that publicly and you want the media to pick that up. That's something that you can write the press release about. I mean, Roger's story was a little bit different, in fact, that he'd never had a flyer. But if you're just you're changing up the flyer, you could do a press release about that and send it to media. And I see Becky, who is, I want to tell you about Becky. Becky is Roger's cousin, and they have a crazy story because Becky reconnected with this part of her family that she found through ancestry.com. And then she found out she had a missing relative and has become a fearless advocate for her family. She is a researcher. I mean, Haley could hire her to do some of her podcast researching. Becky is so good at it. But Becky just said the press release elicited a response from law enforcement after 2.5 years of silence. And when I tell you it was absolute silence, we were sending emails to law enforcement as well. Becky was sending emails, phone calls were being made, and we couldn't get anyone to respond to them. And then all of a sudden, press release was out, and then the news went to the Cook County Sheriff's Office, and the Cook County Sheriff's Office felt that they were under fire a bit, and they finally had to make a statement. So press releases really can put pressure to make, you know, someone make a statement if needed. So like Haley said, that was such an accomplishment, and it felt like we were really able to help Roger's family in that situation. And I know that Becky and then Roger's sister Carol were just so thrilled with what we were able to do, the impact that made.
Yeah. And what's so good about it is that it didn't cost anything. So anyone can do it, you know? And so let's talk about what a press release actually looks like. So I'm going to share my screen with everyone. I'm hoping that you'll be able to see what I'm talking about. If you can't, let me know. We did share a link. So if you can't see it, let me know and we can see if the link is in your chat box. But basically, here is the press release that we sent out for Roger's story. And so you'll see here up at the top that we have an email subject line, and that's because when it comes to sending out a press release, I highly recommend that you email them. And your email subject line does not have to be the same as your title on your press release, but we'll get into that in just a second. So I just want to walk you through what each part of this press release looks like. So up here at the top, we have the email subject line. Then we have the email body text. And I'm going to go through each. I'm going to break all these down, but just wanted to show you what each part is. So we have a title. You always put this for immediate release at the top unless you want to send it in advance, which would be an embargo. And I've never really done that before, but it is an option. And in the handout that we're going to send at the end, you'll be able to see what that looks like and what that means. But basically, if you want to send out a press release in advance and don't want the information to be immediately released, then you would put that instead of for immediate release. And then, of course, we have our title, and then we have the location of where you're sending the press release, a date, and then we have the actual text of the press release. And we have some quotes, and then down at the bottom, we have media contacts. And then I like to put photos available upon request. Last year, when we did this webinar, I suggested that you link your pictures and your websites in there. I've learned that sometimes that can be detrimental because these, these email like hosts, if you're emailing Fox or something like that, they have these firewalls in place. And so sometimes if you send things with links, they're not getting them. So I like to just send a plain text email, and then if they get back to you, you can send them whatever you want after you've initiated conversation. So that way you're not getting sent to spam. That's just what I've done. Another thing I recommend is actually just sending the text in the email. Don't save it as a PDF and send as a PDF. Just because, again, that's an attachment and these firewalls can be really weird. So starting back up here at the top, and again, you're going to get a handout that has all kinds of information. It's going to break down all of this into major detail. This is just going to be an overview. If you have any questions, Shane is going to give our contact information at the end. And there's also going to be a Q&A at the end as well. So starting at the top, we just have an email subject line. I suggest that your subject line is clear, it's compelling, and it highlights the urgency or the newsworthiness of your story. Obviously, every story is newsworthy, but in this day and age, when we have so many people sending in things to the media, you have to make it catchy. You have to make it, catch their eye. And we recently did a webinar with Ophelia Garcia Lawler, who is a journalist, and she actually broke all of this down into extreme detail, where she talked about how many emails they get per day and what kind of headlines are going to be compelling. So we definitely recommend that you check that out just to get even more information about how all this works. But basically, you want it to be something that catches their eye and makes them open their emails. And again, it doesn't have to be the same as your title in your actual press release. And then we have the email body text. This is what you would send in the actual email. And of course, like I talked about, you have the for immediate release at the top. And then we have our title. So we put new efforts to find Roger, and he's been missing since 1975. I chose not to use that as our email subject line because unfortunately the media did not know who Roger was. We had to inform them of that. And so if you notice in my email subject line, we did new efforts to solve nearly 50-year-old disappearance. And that ended up working. In the tips and the handout that I give you, it talks about how if you don't receive a response back from the media in a couple days, don't be afraid to resend your press release. Try a different email subject line. Sometimes I'll get more, and I apologize for using this word, but I'll get more sensational if I'm trying really hard to get somebody to open up their email. And sometimes that feels really icky, but it also works. So, but don't go out of your comfort zone. Don't put anything that you're not, comfortable with, but know that unfortunately, the more sensational, it's probably going to get opened more often. And then, like I said, we have the city and the state that the press release is getting sent out. So for example, I don't live in Chicago, but the story takes place in Chicago. So I put Chicago, then I put the day that I planned on releasing the press release. And then we get into our first paragraph. And this first paragraph is going to be your most important because this is the first thing that people are going to read. So this is going to include your 5 W's and your 1 H. So who, what, where, when, why, and how. So you just want to do a really quick summary here of why you're sending out this press release. And like Shana said earlier, we originally sent out this press release to announce that Light the Way was working with Roger's family and that he finally had a flyer. So if you read here, we put Light the Way Missing Persons Advocacy Project has partnered with the family of Roger. I'm not going to disrespect anyone by trying to pronounce that. A Hispanic male who has been missing since November 20th, 1975, to bring renewed attention to his case. Despite nearly 50 years passing since his disappearance, Roger's case has never received the media attention it deserves, and until now, there was no flyer or public awareness in place. So you see here where we just summarized very quickly what we're sending this press release out for. One, he has a new flyer, and two, he hasn't had any public awareness. And then your second paragraph should expand to general details provided in the first paragraph. So, for example, now we're going to talk about Roger. Roger was last seen in front of his apartment building in Chicago, conversing with a man in a red car. His family became increasingly worried when days went by without any contact from him. Upon visiting his apartment, they found all of the lights and the TV still on, but Roger was nowhere to be found. He has not been seen or heard from since. So again, this is a very, very quick summary of Roger's disappearance. There are 50 years worth of details to include, but we can only summarize it into one paragraph. And then if you feel like you still have more stuff to say, we'll get into that here towards the bottom. But again, these two top paragraphs are what people are going to see first. So make sure you put your most important details there first, and then you can add additional details later on at the bottom. And then we recommend including quotes. And you'll see here that I put them in bold and I italicize them, and that's just to get them to stand out. And the reason why we suggest you include quotes is because sometimes the media won't contact you. They will actually just make an article out of the press release. So when I work with families to send press releases out, I suggest that you make sure you get your message across in your quotes, just in case they don't reach out to you, you still feel like your voice has been heard. So for example, with this one, we asked Becky to sit down with Roger's sister, Carol, and put together a quote, and she did that, and it was wonderful. So Carol says, "It is living with a steady, uneasy feeling of not knowing if he is dead or alive. It is the not knowing, the wondering all these years what happened to my brother." And I just put, says Carol, Roger's sister, reflecting on the nearly 50 years of heartache and unanswered questions. So, I mean, even that one quote gave me goosebumps. You know, that's a beautiful quote. They can go into an article. And if nobody came to interview Carol, at least her voice was still heard. And then we also recommend, you know, if you want to have the police make a statement, if you have a good relationship with them, you can always ask advocates like Shayna put together a beautiful quote about Roger, and we included that, and it's about the flyer. You know, she said today for the first time they're able to share Roger's face and story on a missing person flyer, a step that should have not taken so long to achieve. So again, this saves Shayna from having to be interviewed for the article if they choose to do it. So you have these pieces of information already in there. And then towards the bottom here, next paragraphs can just include information that you weren't able to include above. Maybe it's not as you know, relevant to like the core of the story, but this is still information that you want to be in an article. So here we have Roger's appearance. We talk about where he worked. We talked about how the family is trying to get in touch with a man named Ernest. And then we included the contact information. If there was, if there's a reward in the case, you can add that too. And then we just included one more paragraph of details, basically saying Light the Way has recently created a flyer and we urge the media to share it. And then at the bottom here, you're going to want to include media contacts. You can put more than one. I suggest having maybe just one, at maximum two, so that there's not too many people that the media is trying to get in touch with. You can always give them additional names. I personally suggest that you put your email and your phone number, and that's because the media sometimes works really fast. Sometimes I'll send out a press release and then I'm getting an answer immediately, and the reporter wants to speak to the family, and maybe the family only checks their email once a day. And so I suggest you put your phone number on there too, just so you can get a text or a phone call. And that way you're easier to reach. Like I said, the media works really fast. And while you do want to work on your own timeline and you don't need to feel rushed or things like that, it is good just to have your phone on you and be aware that the media might try to contact you. And then again, like I said, putting photos available upon request at the bottom. That's just my personal choice. If you want to try attaching photos or links, you absolutely can. Sometimes it works, and sometimes I feel like I'm getting sent to spam. So that is an example of a press release. In the handout you're going to see this. You're also going to see just what the template looks like and what you should be putting in each section. And on top of that, the template also includes a link to a video showing you how to use ChatGPT to write your press releases. So I'm personally not the best writer. I know I do that for a job, but it's very like, here are the facts, things like that. So I love to use ChatGPT to help me with a press release. Basically, what I show you how to do is you come up with the information that you want to put in there, and then it helps you write it in a way that flows and fits what the media likes to see. It's absolutely not necessary to use ChatGPT, but it is helpful if you need it. And in the handout you're going to receive, there's a video showing you how to use ChatGPT to help you write a press release if you so wish to do that. So let's talk about what happens when you're done writing the press release. So when you're done, I have too many screens. So as soon as you're done with your press release, you want to identify your target audience. You want to determine which media outlets are most likely to be interested in your story. This could include local newspapers, TV stations, radio stations, online news websites, magazines, blogs, forums, and so much more. And like I said, we did that webinar with journalist Ofeli, and she talks in there about all the different types of media. And there are some in there that you may not think would be helpful, but they actually will be. Places that you may not think to reach out to. There are so many different ways to share your loved one's story. And in today's world, the internet is, we're getting a lot of our media from the internet and things like that. So there are so many more ways to spread awareness than just newspapers and TV stations. So keep an open mind about that. And then also good old ChatGPT can also help you identify media outlets. And I also put together a how-to video on that. It's very easy. You just tell ChatGPT, for example, with Roger's case, we had to look up stations or media outlets in Chicago. So I just asked ChatGPT to tell me all of the media outlets in Chicago. It told me them, and then I went and looked up the information, which also there's a video on that as well. So the next thing you're going to do is you're going to compile a media list based off of your target audience. I'm going to show you what that looks like. So here at Light the Way, we actually have an entire spreadsheet that we use to keep track of all of our contacts. And we keep them in this little spreadsheet. And I just took a screenshot of it. If I can find it, here we go. Hopefully you can see that. So we just put station in a spreadsheet and then the email on the other side, and then we just keep track. So for example, our first step is to identify our target audience. And so our target audience is Chicago, and we were able to find these main media outlets: NBC, ABC, Fox, CBS. Each city should have those four, most likely. They may not be, like, for example, I used to live in a smaller city, and so we didn't have like a hometown Fox station, but we got the nearby big cities. So you can still send it to, like, I lived in Topeka, and Kansas, and so we didn't have a Fox, but the Kansas City station has a Fox. So I still would have contacted Fox as well because they're kind of covering the whole area. So don't be afraid to go outside if you have to, if you're not in a big city. And then we have some, the Sun Times newspaper, Chicago Tribune, those kinds of things. So that is our target audience. And then I go on to completing a media list. So after I know that I need to look up contacts for NBC, then I start looking up those specific email contacts. And again, there's a video on how to do that. Basically, you just utilize Google. It's very easy. There are multiple places you might find contact information. Typically, it's on the station's website, but you may also find it on social media. And I show you many different ways to find contact information. And if for any reason you aren't finding who you're looking for, don't be afraid to reach out to the contact email that Shayna is going to give out, and we'd be happy to look into that and see if we can find an email for you. But usually you can find at least one. You'll notice here that on this spreadsheet, I have 2 emails for NBC, but only 1 for ABC. And then I have a ton for Chicago Tribune. So it just depends on the outlet, how many emails you'll find, but you can usually find at least 1, and that's fine. You don't have to find a ton of different emails. It can just broaden the possibility of somebody reaching out to you, but it's not completely necessary. And then after you have compiled your media list, like I said, I suggest that you keep it in a spreadsheet. Google Sheets is free. It's just sheets.google.com. You can save your own spreadsheet there and keep adding to it, if you meet new contacts. And then once you have your media list ready to go, you're ready to send out your press release. And there's several ways to do that. Of course, we've already been talking about email, and that's what I suggest because it's free and it's easy. And so you would just send your press release directly. And again, in this handout, I have a few additional tips in there. For example, I suggest if I was sending out this press release for Roger and I have all of these different contacts, I would not send just one email to all of these contacts because I have found that also sometimes gets me sent to spam. So what I do is I send one email per outlet. So if we're looking at this list, I would send one email with the press release to both of my NBC contacts, and then I'm done with that email. Then I start a new email and I send it to my one ABC contact, then a new one for Fox, and so forth. I know it's tedious, but it just takes a couple of extra minutes, and I feel like it does help your chances of getting past the spam. Plus, they won't see that you sent it to a whole bunch of people. If they see that, they might be like, oh, that other outlet's probably going to cover it. I'm not going to do that. And that what you're wanting is to get as much press as possible, and you can work with more than one outlet in a week. I've worked with families who have worked with a different station every week or every day of the week. So it's absolutely okay to do that. You can also, after you send out your email, you can share your press release on social media. So you may have seen Light the Way do that before. Recently, Shayna did an entire huge project to bring awareness to the fact that Oakley Carlson's horrible biological mother, I use that word in quotations, was going to be released from prison. And so she put together a press release, and then we released it on social media so that people could see it as well. And you can tag journalists in there, you can tag podcasters, you can tag all kinds of places. The one thing I would recommend is that when you do put the press release on there, make sure to remove your contact information if you don't want people to have that. And I certainly would not keep your phone number on there. If you have a case email, where it's like justice for Roger at Gmail, I think it's okay to keep that email on there, but definitely not your phone number. You don't want random people to be able to contact you. Usually I just completely delete that when I'm uploading the press release, just to be careful. And then another thing you can do is you can send press releases via distribution services, such as PR Newswire or Business Wire. Those cost money, and that's because they already have access to all of this information. You wouldn't have to go through all of these steps, but again, it is costly, and I feel like it's not as I don't know that it's as successful as just emailing these people directly. But if you feel like you're not getting enough traction with your emails, this is another option for you to look into. And then, of course, you can also hire a PR firm if that is something that you're wanting to do. There's a lot of options, but email is the free version. And then just some tips. I have a lot of tips in here, but one thing that I've learned is that it's helpful to send out your press release on a Wednesday. That seems to be the day that everyone's in the newsroom looking for stories. It's not as busy. It's the middle of the week. So I usually send out my first press release on a Wednesday. And we suggest that you send out your press release 3 different times before the event, and whether that is an actual in-person event or it's a commemorative date or it is, a new flyer or things like that. Like, think about sending it in advance on a Wednesday so that hopefully you can reach somebody, and then you can make plans to put together the story in the future. And then we also suggest that you send one on the day before the event or the day that you're wanting to be interviewed, things like that. And then once the day of, prior to 9 a.m. Or, for example, Denise Robert, another Light the Way family, she had her family hosted a memorial walk for her, but it started at 8 a.m. So of course I set the email to send at like 6 a.m. so that it would get there in time. And then another email is that another tip, is that you can schedule your emails to be sent in advance. And this is one of my favorite features because I can just sit down in one setting and schedule all 3 press releases that I want to go out. The one on the Wednesday, the one the day before, and then the one day of. And in the handout that you're going to receive, there will be links to directions for how to schedule emails on Outlook, Gmail, and Yahoo. And if you have an email service that's not one of those, I think if you just Google how to schedule emails and then insert your email host, you should be able to see that. And then after that, after you're sending out your press release, make sure to keep a close eye on your email and your phone. Like I said, the media works fast. You could receive a response sooner than you expect to. And again, like I said earlier, if and when you hear from the media, please remember that you have rights. And you can watch that video with Ofeli to learn more, because again, we go into extreme detail about those things and talking about how you have so many different rights in working with the media. Do not let them steamroll you. They're working on your time, and it's okay to stick up for yourself. And then you want to monitor coverage. So keep track of any media coverage that's generated by your press release, including articles, news segments, and online mentions. This will help you evaluate the impact of your outreach efforts and identify any opportunities for further engagement with the media. So, for example, let's say that you send out a press release one time and you didn't get a response. And so you're like, okay, I'm going to try another time, but I'm going to switch up my email subject line. And then you do get a response on that. Make note of what that response was, or make note of what your subject line was, so that you can see, okay, so this subject line did lead the media to open my email, or the other one didn't. So next time I send something out, I'm going to make it be more like the second subject line that I had. I know that this can all seem kind of daunting, but as long as you can figure out what the media is looking for and you can play into that, it can be a lot easier. And then one tip, we do this all the time at Light the Way, we set up Google Alerts. And the reason I suggest you do that is because, like I said earlier, sometimes the media will release an article just simply based on your press release. They'll never reach out to you. So if you don't have a Google Alert set up, you may not know that an article was sent out. And so that can be helpful for you. And then another thing I suggest, this just happened to a lovely family that I work with, and I'm not going to, you know, call that out, but they recently found out that there was an article written and they didn't know about it. And then they just found it on Google and it was full of terrible, terrible details that were not true and were harmful. And if the family hadn't found that, and then that information would still be out there. And then they contacted the reporter and asked them to correct the information. But again, if they didn't find that, then it would still be out there. And unfortunately, it shouldn't be on you to look up that information, but it can be. So having that Google alert set up can just be really helpful for you to monitor what's going on. And there are different settings on the alerts. You can personalize it to yourself. And then I just have one more section and then I am done talking to you guys forever. And I apologize, I left my screen share on. I don't know if you could see me or not, but
You're good now. You're fine.
okay, so sorry. You guys are just staring at a spreadsheet screenshot. There were no other visuals. It was just me rambling on. So, and then the last thing to do after coverage. So after you work with a journalist or a journalist releases an article based on your press release, there's just a few things that we suggest doing. I always like to send a thank you note just to let them know, like, thank you so much for taking the time to do that. And I also feel like it builds a little bit more rapport and you just let them know like how thankful you are for working with a family. And that's what I like to do. So I suggest doing that. You can also share the articles on social media and tag the journalist. I've noticed that that is something that they like doing, or they like when you do that. So don't be afraid to do that. And then, like I was just talking about, when you see an article that was written about your loved one, I suggest you review it and make sure that it's factual. So everyone's human. They may make a mistake or they may include information that you didn't want to be in there. So definitely review the article and then take note of anything that is inaccurate or anything that's missing. And then you can politely reach out to the journalist and request a correction. And there's an email template included in the handout for you if you need help with that at all. Again, we're here to help if you have any questions or are dealing with that kind of situation. And also, Ofeli goes into that in detail as well in the webinar that we did with her. And then the other thing I suggest is to keep the journalists updated, right? So if there are any major updates in your loved one's case, reach out to them again. Even if you don't feel like the update is newsworthy, again, using that word in quotes, still reach out to them because they may be looking for a story to do and your loved one's story matters and is newsworthy. And it's good to just keep them in the loop so that they're thinking about you. And again, just having that rapport with the journalist is going to be so helpful, you know, now and in the future. And then at the very bottom of the handout that you're going to receive, there's a list of general tips. I'm not going to go through them now because I've been talking to you forever, but there's a lot of information on there as well to help you out. So we'll be sending that at the end. And yeah, that's all I have right now.
Wow.
Haley, that was
That was
incredible, Haley. I mean, she really is our like media specialist. She turned into a professional and expertise at this. So Haley, that was amazing. I just want to like throw one thing at Nicole since like you live this too. And I know that some of our families have had this, but the relationships with journalists become so important in cases. And I mean, I know that, you know, your Gabby's story moved quickly, but your impact in this community has been, you know, you're talking long term. And so some of our cases have like these long term, you know, they're longer missing cases, longer unsolved cases. And the families have created these relationships with law enforcement, I mean, with journalists. And I just love when I hear that journalists are like, hey, it's so and so's birthday. What are you planning to do this year? Or, hey, I saw that, you know, law enforcement is coming up with an update. What does the family want to say about that? And I just love that these types of press releases can start to build those connections because families rely on that, on those relationships. So what was your experience with that, Nicole? Because I know that you still have great relationships with some of those people.
Yeah, some of them have become very good friends. I think they're important because they will reach out to me still now and say, you know, we'd like to do a post about Gabby's birthday. Would you like to say something? Do you want to come on and talk about the four, you know, it's been 4 years. And that to me means a lot. It means they still care about it. And you can tell when someone's really genuine and they are people too. Remember, they're not just reporters. You know, there's some really good people out there. And I think that relationship with the media people is just as important as your law enforcement relationship because the media is what puts pressure on law enforcement to keep working. So, kind of that full circle, like just keeping that relationship with everybody. You know, it's hard because sometimes there's people that sensationalize it, and you just got to be careful and you got to protect yourself and um, you know, have boundaries, ask questions, and just you know, you get through it, you live and learn, but it is an important relationship. And we had a very good experience and we were very blessed with that. Yeah.
So, you know, keep that in the back of your head as you're starting to, you know, write your own press releases and connect with these journalists. Like, you know, is this someone that you're interested in forming those types of relationships with? And like Haley said, like those thank you notes or those just like follow up emails. And like Nicole said, they're just people too. And some of them are like looking for those types of you
Yeah.
know, humanity stories, like connecting with the public and, you know, people who are missing and have, you know, unresolved cases. Those are the types of stories that a lot of journalists do want to tell. So, you know, connecting when you can. And one thing that we do, like Haley was mentioning, when we kind of keep track of the press releases and if they're picked up, we just do that on like a Google sheet as well, so that we can keep track of like, all right, in 2025, which press releases got media, which ones didn't, you know, how can we go through? That's just something that you can do. And I've also had law enforcement come back to me and say, hey, can you send us the stories that, you know, we're on, and this is for Oakley, like on King 5 in the month of February 2022, and then I have them all because I saved them, you know, because I was looking for all of the stories. So it's a good tool for you to have. You know, a lot of people, you know, timeline and document everything that's going on in their loved one's story. It's just another way to document that stuff. So it's just a good thing to, you know, keep your eye on and make sure that, you know, you're watching how the media reports your loved one's story. But Haley, that was incredible. Thank you so much.
It was
Oh, yeah,
wonderful.
of
So
course.
informative. I think that even like I saw one question come through. I think you kind of answered it. I will actually put it up now. It's going to cover my face, but so how do you determine who to send the press release to, especially if you're unfamiliar with the area where a missing person resided or was last seen? So,
Yeah, so in the videos that are in the handout, you'll see a video on how to find contacts or how to look up, you know, these kinds of things. And usually what I do is I just start with the location. So let's say that the person last resided in, you know, Atlanta, Georgia. Then I just look up Atlanta, Georgia media outlets and I just kind of send to everyone.
mhm,
Now you'll see there, and like I said earlier, there's a video where you'll see me actually gathering contact information. And there are different ways to do that, but some websites will list out every person on the staff. And what I do is I go through that and I look at their title. So if they're a meteorologist, I'm like, okay, I'm not sending to this person. Or, oh, this person's a sports anchor, or this person does financial stuff. You don't send to those people, but if they are just like I don't want to say average, but if they're just like a general reporter, then I'll send it to them. Though, I mean, the worst thing they can do is just ignore it. So I really have no problem sending to any type of outlet. Now, sometimes when you look up these places, so if I looked up Atlanta, it will probably tell me like, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, like that's a newspaper, that's going to be great. But it'll also tell me local magazines. And sometimes you'll see, especially if you use Chat GPT to help you, like I show you in the video, you'll see that Chat GPT will be like, let's just say it was like Atlanta Magazine, and then it'll be like talks about things that are going around the city. So I'm like, okay, that one will work. Or I might see one that's like, this is a financial magazine. Well, then I'm not going to send it to the financial one. But usually I'll just send to whatever even looks remotely acceptable to send to. And you'll see if you ever saw our spreadsheet, there's some stuff in there that maybe we shouldn't send to, but I just feel better sending it to more people than I guess necessary.
Yeah. I just want to also reiterate to people too, like they don't realize that they can write their own press releases and send them to the media. I think people's misconception is that press releases come from like a professional or, you don't know how to do that, but this is very simple, and utilize ChatGPT, like you said before, because it can really help you lay it out properly and keep it kind of on the shorter and sweeter side, but add the details that you think are important. But yeah, so it was just great to hear you say all that, Haley. I didn't even know a lot of that information, so I was learning something too.
Yeah, it's just stuff that I've learned. And again, anyone can send a press release. Like Nikki said, don't, like you can do it and it can be helpful for sure.
Haley, can you kind of touch just really quickly about how you can kind of use a press release not only to spread awareness, but then to thank people in the community for like helping you with awareness ideas, like with billboards or with Jonathan Hong with the coffee sleeves, and how like when you're doing stuff like that, it's really important so that we encourage other businesses to participate in things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can really send a press release for anything. Don't feel like it has to be something huge, like something that you consider to be like, I only can send a press release once a year, so it's going to be on their commemorative date or something like that. That's not true. You can send a press release for anything. So like Shana said, sometimes we partner with a local billboard company, and they'll put up billboards for a loved one. And so then what we do is we send out a press release to the media saying, hey, this person now has billboards. And I can tell you, now I can't promise that they'll come do a story, but we have had a lot of success with the stories about billboards. What I've learned is that the media likes to come and do something in person. So like Shana was mentioning the coffee sleeves, one thing awareness idea that we've used before is these coffee sleeves. I have some right here. They were my business partner, Whitney St. Andre's idea. She came up with these. I'm sure you can't see it very well, but it's just a coffee sleeve that has case information on it. They're extremely cheap to make. And we sent 500 to Washington for Jonathan's story, and partnered with a local coffee shop. And then we sent out a press release saying, hey, this local coffee shop is handing out these coffee sleeves. And I think they got like 4 stories out of it, and this is a case that is reported on quite often. So it wasn't like, it had been a year or something since there was coverage. Like that, people do care about these in-person things. So anytime you're doing anything for your loved one's story, I think you should send out a press release. And if you develop a relationship with a journalist, maybe you just send them a message saying, hey, I know we did a story a couple of months ago. I'm actually working on some coffee sleeves. Is this something you're interested in doing a story on? Maybe you don't even have to do a full press release if you do have those relationships. So don't be afraid to send one out for anything. If you're going to do a flyering event, or if you're going to another state to do to a conference, like we're all going to Cold Case Symposium next month, and people are going to be traveling to that. Like anything that you want the media to know about, don't be afraid to tell them, because you just never know what's going to bring awareness. I've admit this, I've sent out press releases thinking, oh, this isn't going to do anything, and then next thing I know, we have 5 stories. So you just don't know, and it's worth trying, especially because it doesn't cost anything. And that's my favorite thing, is when it's free.
That's awesome. I don't think we had any more questions in the chat. If anybody has any more questions, please throw them in there. But is there anything else, Shayna, that you think we didn't touch on that people should know?
I don't think so. Like we mentioned, and Haley, like this is a really easy thing. Once you kind of get over your fear of like trying it out and writing it, it's something really easy to do. And ChatGPT is your friend when it comes to this, because ChatGPT understands what it is. Haley's handout is incredible. The templates are really helpful and will help set you up for success. You can reach out to us with questions. We're info@lightthewaymissing.com, and we can help you with anything when it comes to press releases. Haley's document is pretty step by step, and so take a look at that, see if that's something that you can understand. If there's something that you need help with, just let us know. We want to hear about your successes. So if you do try this out, like, please let us know. If you get stories, we'd love to be able to post it on our socials. Just ask if we can put the handout link in the chat.
So I think when I sent it out, people couldn't see it because I'm not an admin. So I think if Nikki puts it,
I thought they could see
YouTube
it.
can be weird.
Because it says Riverside on yours, so I thought that means it goes out to both, but I can certainly copy and paste. See if it comes from me. Let me know if you guys get this.
Let's try it out, guys.
It's weird because sometimes it comes up as Gabby because it comes from Gabby Petito Foundation. So it'll pop up and say Gabby posted it, and I'm like, oh, that's so cool.
Okay, I think that worked. And basically it's going to prompt you to make a copy of that for your own self. That way you basically have your own copy of it. You can edit it, you can do whatever you want to it. And I'll also be, sharing the link. I can share it on social media, and I'm sure you can find it there. And then maybe just for people who are watching this, just make sure to check the chat towards the bottom, and you'll be able to click on the document. But you can always reach out and we can send it to you as well.
Sheila, I can see that you're asking for email. Send me an email, Sheila, and I will send you it in response.
Yep. I just posted it again. It's info@lightthewaymissing.com.
Yeah.
If you need it emailed to you, yeah.
Yes. Sheila is Iman Cannon's mom. So yes, Sheila, email us and I will email that to you. Also, I just want to point out that today is National Remembrance Day of Homicide Victims. So we're thinking of anyone who has lost a loved one. We work with families who have lost loved ones, and we work with families who have these long-term missing cases whose family members who are presumed deceased. So we're thinking of you all. We're sending you so much support and love and hugs your way, and we're here to support you in any way that we can. We've got a couple months left for the year. Nikki and I had a meeting with someone today. I think that our next webinar is going to be about search and rescue and how that process kind of works.
Search and recovery as well. It's for older
Yeah.
cases. Yeah.
Yeah, so we're just kind of educate people on what that process looks like. So that will be it. And then we'll probably have one more after that. And we got to put our thinking caps on to decide what that will be for November. So stay tuned. A couple more things. I can't believe that it's the fall of 2025 at this point. But we're really honored that you guys spend so much time with us and that you chose to join us this evening. Thank you, Haley, for making this webinar even greater than the last one and for putting so much time and effort into creating that document that is for sure going to help people write some pretty amazing press releases.
Of course. And again, if anyone has questions, don't hesitate to reach out. I'm happy to read over, your press release before you send it. I'm one of those people where I'm like, I'm scared to send this. So please, you cannot imagine the amount of things that Shayna has to read for me before they get sent out. So I'm always here if you need any type of, a second pair of eyes or whatever you need. But we believe in you and we know that you can do this. And we really look forward to hearing about all of your successes with your press releases.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you for joining, everyone. All
Thank
right.
you.